It's California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz. We are joined today by Lois Capps. She is a member of the United States Congress representing Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo County. And I must ask you about Santa Barbara, how the county is doing. We are now at the end of the summer, and at the beginning there was the tragedy at UCSB. As you know, you've met my niece. She was just finishing her freshman year at UCSB. Fortunately, she was not involved in the incident, but we lost 3 students. I mean, it's still crushing.
Very raw.
Yeah, very raw.
We are all touched by that episode of gun violence, but by the fact that gun violence is so prominent in our country.
Right.
And we must do something about it.
It's interesting you say that, because there's no doubt that there's a sense that we need to do something, but what should be done, there are so many divisions within California and throughout the nation. I mean, urban versus rural, north versus south, such different views on this question. Some believe we should, as a result of UCSB, limit gun access. Others say, well, no, this proves we need to increase gun access, because if someone had a gun, they could have stopped the crazy man.
Yes. There are things we can do, Brad, and that's what I focus on is what can we do. And I want to focus on gun safety. Let's make the use of guns, which we have in the Second Amendment, people have the right to own a gun. Let's make it safer. And let's give some tools to family members, parents, who in this instance were very concerned that this person could do harm to themselves or others. And that's legislation that I've addressed, and it's being addressed in the state as well.
And how ironic is it that this was a family?
Yes.
Although the parents were divorced, they were very much in touch with each other. They were driving up because they sensed their son was in crisis, and while they were driving from Los Angeles, the horrible incident occurred. But your point is well taken in that I think Democrats and Republicans believe that there is a mental health question here.
Absolutely. The combination between that window of time of accessibility of having a gun, that an intervention could take place, and the vulnerability of mental health. We've got to respond there, and we can, both in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C.
But what's so troubling to some is, I'm sure you know, the perpetrator, there had been a few welfare checks. The most recent one, the third one, we know that 5 or 6 officers came to his apartment. He clearly was a bright young man, and he was able to kind of convince them he was fine. He had a cache of weapons. And while I don't want to criticize the officers, they do remarkable work, they're not psychologists. I mean, are we asking too much? I mean, a welfare check is being done by a law enforcement official.
But these parents knew, and that's the link. We want to build upon those links, that concern that some person with credibility is able to say,
trust me.
Go in the door, go look, and you will find the weapons.
As you've been here this summer, are people talking to you about UCSB and the incident? Is it still on people's minds?
Yes, it is. It does fade, as you know, we have a short attention span oftentimes, but that it is there, and I believe we need to respond to that. The campus is very concerned that it become a safer place.
And so in Washington, are there discussions about gun safety? I mean, you know, last year the Senate, on a bipartisan basis, was looking at passing legislation. Manchin to me, it didn't get past filibuster. I mean, could we see some resolution?
There are many of us in the House of Representatives who want this to be a discussion on the floor of the House, and I believe we can.
When we come back, I want to speak more about your recent trip home.
Yes.
I know you've been speaking with many constituents. Get a sense of what they're saying to you as their member of Congress. So much is going on in the nation and the world today. For our viewers on HLN, thank you so much for joining us. For other viewers, we'll be right back with Congresswoman Lois Capps. So now that you're home, you've been speaking with your constituents. Give us a sense of what they're saying to you other than the UCSB incident. What else are they talking about?
They are concerned about the economy, as we all are, as I am as well. The recovery is happening, but it's going way too slowly, and so focusing on opportunities for employment. I've been visiting our community colleges, Allen Hancock Community College.
I know it.
And looking to see what kind of job training they're doing there, and at our other campuses as well, to try to enhance that and give opportunity for new jobs for people.
And I think about your district, beautiful, obviously, San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County. You know, we think about the coast, but right next to the coast, there are just fields and acres of agriculture. Some of it active, but some of it fallowed. And that's got to be very difficult, you know, for your constituents who they make their living on agriculture, and we are facing a drought like we haven't seen in centuries.
Yes, that is a particular challenge for our farmers in this drought that goes on. There's no magic bullet for how to deal with it, but there are interventions that can happen in people who are hard hit by it. I hope are contacting our office, and I've invited them to do so. We can put together resources, but back to our educate our schools in preparing. What we need to do is anticipate that we will have droughts from time to time, and take advantage of technology in agriculture that our community colleges and Cal Poly and UC Santa Barbara, Davis are equipping our agriculture team to do.
And it's interesting you mention community colleges, because as you may know, a few months back, President Obama visited a community college in Los Angeles, LA Trade Tech, and you know, it was seen as a symbol. I mean, he knew where he was going. He didn't visit UCLA or USC or Stanford. You know, he went to a community college. What does that symbolism say to you as someone who's been an advocate for all levels of higher education?
It says to me that our lack of employment can be addressed and is most effectively addressed at our community colleges, and we need to equip them with the technology instruction that can match with the needs of the employer to be and prepare the jobs for the local area. It's happening.
Right. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Middle East. What a tragic summer this has been.
Yes.
Without even getting into the politics of Israel and Hamas and Gaza, tragedy is tragedy, death is death. But now we know that that conflict seems to have been resolved at some level. But what's happening with ISIL, I mean, they are beheading my colleagues. I mean, they are beheading fellow journalists. And that's only the Americans we know about. I can't imagine what they're doing to their own. What are the members of Congress saying about this?
Well, it's clearly a crisis that we need to address, that needs to be addressed. I hear from my constituents a strong admonition. We don't want to engage in another war. We don't want troops on the ground. The boots on the ground is something they don't want.
Which is interesting that you say that, because one would think that maybe minds would be changed given the videos that we have seen of Americans being beheaded. I know the appetite for what happened in Iraq really has been soured, but that being said, are you sensing a shift or not so much?
I know that there is definitely going to be conversation when we resume Congress in a couple of days that will address how to respond to those particular egregious incidents, and we must. We cannot let that be a pattern that continues, and certainly doesn't necessarily call for a full-on war, but it will be addressed.
But it's so frustrating because what we see is airstrikes that seem to be effective.
Yes.
I'm no specialist, but I understand that they are effective. But yet in the wake of effective airstrikes, we have ISIS members going on camera and saying, this is what you get for your latest airstrike. And they kill an American.
Yes. It's a crisis. Let's put it that way. It's a huge crisis that now we need to put all hands on deck in terms of how do we address it in a way that is responsive to the needs of this one.
And do you feel as if the Congress can work in a bipartisan fashion on this very issue? Because it's been a challenge the last few years.
Yes, you point your finger right at something. Yes, I believe we can, because while we will differ on the extent to which, that's where the conversation should be. What are the ways we should do this? American people speak through us, and we need to do this.
Her name is Lois Capps. She is a member of the United States Congress representing the beautiful Central Coast. I'm Brett Pomerantz. It's California Edition.